and welcome to Hong Kong Business Owners. I'm Carmen, founder of this podcast that shares inspiring stories from entrepreneurs based in Hong Kong. Whether you created your own business, thinking about doing so, or simply curious to discover business creation stories, you'll get to listen to unique business owners' journeys, to learn what it takes to start a company, what the keys to success are, how to apprehend failures and challenges, and what to keep in mind when developing your own business. As an entrepreneur, one of your main focus is to sell your products or services. That's where marketing comes into play, especially digital marketing and social media. Do you know how much time we spend every day on social media? More than 2 hours. That's an opportunity to interact with your audience, reach new customers, and get more visibility. To find out more about how to leverage social media to grow your business, check out oak.genhk.com, the agency that helps business owners find their place on social media. Now let's move on to the episode. I hope it'll inspire you and guide you in your current or future projects. And don't forget to give me 5 stars to show me your support. Dear listeners, welcome to this new episode of Hong Kong Business Owners. I'm Carmen. I'm happy to have you here, Krizia Lee. Hi, how are you?
Hi, Carmen. I'm doing great. Thank you. Glad to be here.
Glad you're here. So you're the founder of Vermillion, Asia's first ever international B2B e-commerce marketplace to showcase the best of Asian luxury lifestyle brands to the world's corporate clients. Your brand carries up to 300 brands for diverse clients, from real estate to hospitality groups to design professionals, but also retail buyers and merchandisers. So actually with Vermillion, what struck me is that you have a goal that is beyond just business development. Your goal is to shed light on Asian design and luxury products and pass on the Asian heritage and philosophies as you source from 12 countries in APAC. So you're sensitive to design and aesthetics. You started collecting art yourself years ago, and you like the idea of bridging tradition and modernity. So my first question is, do you think Asian art and luxury is not there yet in terms of influence worldwide? Is it a matter of time? Is it a battle of influence between Asia and also the Western influence?
So I don't really believe it's a battle. It's really more like a cyclical kind of waxing and waning of the world's consumers and what they're looking for at the time. So every culture has their time at the peak. But also any country's fall leads to maybe an overcompensation and efforts to regain their former position in the world. And their ambition will take them from, a trough back to a peak. So Asian culture influence really rose during like the Tang, Song, Qing, and Ming dynasties. And there was an exchange in cultural dialogue from Japan and South Korea back and forth from China, and exports from ceramics capital Jingdezhen to Delft and Europe, Orientalist handicrafts, which were popularized across Europe. But again, in the 20th century, Cantonese pop music and influential movie making with martial artist Bruce Lee or director John Woo. But of course, winners rewrite the dominant narrative. And so in the 20th century, the Western relevance in creating a careful image of success in industrial innovation and pop culture thought leadership really meant that very extroverted flows of information led to lots of trade exports and, exposure of the technical expertise that were expanding worldwide, basically from European groups such as Louis Vuitton, Moët Hennessy, Richemont, or Kering. Whereas in Asia, there was suddenly an explosion in low-cost labor and production, where there was a lot of low value-added e-commerce platforms, and of course, a very short-termist profiteering mindset, which led to a lot of copycatting, discarding intellectual property protection. So now we really believe that Asia needs to figure out its next steps to elevate themselves to the next level, as opposed to plateauing and basically staying too long in this current low value added liquidity trap where brands and products are high volume and low cost, but also lack the technical credibility and quality authority in the eyes of tastemakers worldwide. So I really just think it's back in the past, in ancient history, Asian cultures were quite advanced, but then, there's just kind of a different flow, times, wars, but every country has a time in the sun.
Yeah. And what do you think is, I mean, there are many things that are being done, and how does it evolve to really move away from this image of this reputation of low cost and big capacity of production?
I really think a lot of it's about authority and taste making, and whether you can really persuade the influencers that your product and your brand is credible with a lot of kind of real quality control and thought leadership. And obviously, it's quite hard to necessarily reprove that once you've had a reputation for low quality and high volumes.
Yeah.
But I do think it's part of the industrialization wave. It's definitely possible, but it definitely has to climb back from where it was before. And also the producers and the business owner mindset might need to change. So it's really a software question. It's not really about hardware and production question. Yeah. So, definitely Asia is the factory of the world. It has all the natural materials, natural resources, the manpower, the productivity. But of course, really it's about, proving their case now.
Yeah, yeah. So was it for those reasons that you started Vermillion, or did a specific thing happen, an encounter that made you take the leap?
So I actually am an early stage collector of Asian contemporary ink art. And, I was actually looking for something in stores around Hong Kong and around Asia, actually, that showcased the Far Eastern Asian aesthetic. But I found it really, really difficult to find. And if you're buying real artworks, you really don't want to be buying something from Taobao or Lazada and things that would probably break upon several uses. And frankly, I did want to be promoting the designers and sourcing direct from them, as opposed to, looking for copycats and, really disrespecting the intellectual property protection. So I actually started building a directory of brands that I really wanted myself. And I thought, hey, why don't I share that with the world? I do think that a lot of times the pain point that people find is something that you would value perhaps as someone with a very similar interest or a similar passion. So we're really trying to aggregate this one-stop directory for everyone.
Cool. Yeah, usually it starts with super authentic ideas. Like if you like it, then maybe other people might be interested. Like usually this is how it starts. Like the podcast, I really love podcasts. I listen to podcasts every day, and I thought maybe I should do that. See? So yeah, funny. I see similarities as I interview a lot of entrepreneurs, and it's funny to see that. So on top of business development and sales, what's your strategy to expand and work on that Asian influence? Do you use tools or social media? What's included in your strategy? Influence like KOLs, or I also saw you part of the 2023 Genty list by Tatler. Does it help as well?
So yes, that definitely helps. But I think most of the time it's really, you've got to do the hard work yourself. I mean, the idea of the platform is that you're aggregating a lot of brands that really have to spend their own marketing dollars on digital, but also offline. But when you aggregate everyone, like several thousand brands on the same platform and the same offline activities, you actually get to share the cost out more effectively. So instead of paying, $10,000 for yourself, you end up paying, maybe $10 individually. We split it between the brands that are participating. So there's a lot about the shared economy that could be quite interesting. honestly, I think for us, we are quite omni-channel. We mostly target B2B, so we're looking at interior designers, architects, and retailers. But for sure, we also need to put our product out for touching and feeling by the professionals as well, because they actually do want to think about putting it in a real space. So not just seeing it as a photo online. So we do have pop-ups. So in the past, we've had Taiping carpets in Princess Building in Central in Hong Kong. We had K11 Museum, MoMA store. We had Raffles Hotel Arcade, Singapore Fine Design Fair. We just completed our Hong Kong Jockey Club one. And the next, we're probably going to go for GOD as well. So we want to make sure that we showcase our range, but also attract the eyeballs of the right audiences. Yeah. So omni-channel is the way forward. And hopefully with multiple brands sharing, things, logistics, execution, operations becomes a lot more scalable.
And like the style, the designs, so it's purely Asian, but do you see like cross like influence also from other cultures? Or I think that's also what's interesting, right?
So I think for us, we very much see clearly the international cultural exchange across different years and centuries and decades, actually. So, I mean, there is the contemporary form where, for example, in Japan, a lot of Cantonese or Hong Kong culture actually comes from very old school Japan. Music, for example, or manga, or interior design, architecture. In the past, Japan was quite influential in terms of pop culture. Fashion brands like Kenzo, Issey Miyake, Yohei Yamamoto, architects like Taro Ando, Kengo Kuma. These are all architects and designers that the rest of the world has tried to emulate. And more recently, I think the Hallyu wave from Korea has been very influential, but in slightly different areas. You know, starting just like Japan had Sony and Casio, Nintendo, PlayStation, but Korea has, you know, Samsung, LG, you know, HSC, Hyundai. So all these hardware companies eventually turn to software platforms and online platforms. So, you know, Kakao, Line, all these platforms help distribute the content. And of course, e-commerce takes it to the next level. So you can start buying Amore Pacific brands or buying, other fashion brands that are now available worldwide. And of course, Hong Kong and the rest of Asia should be taking this as a case study and taking that forward and learning from that as well. But this happened in the past as well. If you look at Asia, you know, back then China was the cultural behemoth, and Japan and South Korea used to send diplomats and scholars to learn things like, you know, scholars' rocks, calligraphy, art, ikebana flower arranging. You know, a lot of these, if you look over the centuries, scholars' rock appreciation, calligraphy appreciation, the kind of Chinese to Hangul characters, these are all things in common that we share, but they've kind of developed in very different directions over time. So actually, this is something that is just eternal, and we embrace the diversity of it.
Cool. And back to your business, Vermillion. So it's a B2B business. I assume this is a strategic choice. So can you tell us more about that decision?
Yeah, of course. I mean, the way that we think about scalability for brands is really if you're trying to do something luxurious and high-end and artisanal, it's actually more difficult to do that at the low end and high volume, because a lot of things need to be made by hand. But also there's the advantage of it being quite customizable as well. So actually, there's a lot of argument for turning a lot of this into something that be usable by a luxury hotel, say, you know, Aman or Banyan Tree, or resorts that really appreciate the sophisticated storytelling, but also leveraging local artisans and local materials and local techniques to build their spaces as well. And of course, they are able to purchase at larger volumes, which basically means that if you set up a mold in a factory or you do any painting or workshopping, it actually makes more sense to, participate with some volume. And I think for brands as well, it's really much more worth the time to do so and to entertain clientele that's looking for more marketing impact and getting more business case studies with best practice clients and top tier design reputations. So we really do think that B2B is probably the way forward for a lot of luxury artisanal brands with the ambition to go overseas and really start building the reputation early from here.
And then in a second phase, it can also influence people after that. I mean,
yes. And just so that you know, a lot of Michelin star restaurants, like if you go look at the Cristofol tableware or the all the different plates, the bowls, the cups, a lot of them are very tailored to the restaurant. But because of a luxury atmosphere, also in hotels that you really love, a lot of people are trying to buy these things and take these home, right? So the Westin has the heavenly bed. W Hotels, they're selling a lot of their fun cushions and their homewares in their lobbies and a lot of the public spaces that are very branded. And of course, Aman has wonderful spa and also Mandarin Oriental has their fragrances and their candles. There's a lot of reasons why we want to present the brands in a luxurious, like lifestyled environment that really showcases what the brands already work well in, as a living showroom, perhaps.
Yeah.
And so that's why B2B is also more impactful for tastemakers and influencers that like to be in these kind of beautiful experiences. And, this will help start propagating the desire to take them home.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, yeah. Smart. And if we talk about more, so your business is very meaningful because it's beyond just, as I was saying, developing the business, but it's beyond that. But you also had even more meaning with the strong values that you put in your business. We talked about that last time. So it's important to you to have a diverse team, to hire women in your team. You also partner with woman-owned brands. So I guess you believe in the power of diversity, and you also think it's also a strategic decision business-wise. So is it the direction many businesses are taking? Do you think ethical businesses are the future? And well, this is a loaded question. And what about also Asia? Is it something that people are conscious about? How is it evolving? And are there like deeply rooted beliefs that require a work of like awareness to move forward?
I think actually the consumer is already asking for it. And also the clients are as well. So policymaking is definitely a big help because once you start demanding it from corporations, even though at the very beginning, the execution is a little bit superficial and cosmetic because they're just doing it because they want to comply.
But you have to start somewhere.
Yes, you have to start somewhere. And it does take time to change people's mindsets because very honestly, ESG compliant materials, techniques, and accessories really do cost more right now. The scalability of the cost is still a question.
Yeah.
Even in renewable energies, we see that solar panels are declining, in terms of cost per panel. But it's going to take time. So you actually do have to maybe compel players in the ecosystem to start adopting it. Maybe not voluntarily at the very beginning.
Yeah.
But I do think consumers, especially young generations of Gen Z, but even younger than that, they're being taught at schools to question their families, their parents. What are you doing in the home? Are you throwing things away? Are you composting? These are all things that are happening very much at a nuclear level to start. And so, people know what good looks like, very honestly. And now it's slowly moving a very large whale of a huge machine and reorienting it towards the right direction. And I think a lot of small brands are actually, in some ways, really good at doing that because they're more agile and quick to adapt. Sometimes even larger than big brands, giant factories that have to buy $1 million machinery to adapt to a new material or new manufacturing process. And so I think we need to attack the problem at all sides. And I think Asia's already, as a factory of world, quite responsible for doing a lot of this and putting them into place. And so this platform is really at the consumer and the demand side, hopefully moving the supply chain in that direction as well in our own ways, and highlighting the importance of that to the client, and same way to client back to us. We're all learning at the same time.
Yeah. But also, on top of that, it's also about human relationships and how people are treated in companies. This is a big topic, especially women. And well, I'm French, so I know what's going on in France. And here in Hong Kong, I don't know if you share the same opinion, but I think it's very hidden. It's not obvious. You won't be harassed or as a woman. It's much more sneaky than that, which makes it more difficult to tackle maybe.
I think for corporate culture, it's latent. I think it's really, it's not overt, but definitely there is an assumption that as a woman, you might behave differently from a man.
Yeah.
I do think it's our jobs also as women to exceed expectations and also to, change our own reputation. It's not necessarily on the man, although the man obviously is quite dominant in the workplace. But for sure, we are also responsible for managing our own positioning and our own image. So for us, we are a female-friendly company, obviously with lots of women in senior management, in fact, most positions. And we do have a lot of moms with 2 or 3 children. And we obviously, I was sharing earlier, we work a lot from home because we want to allow women to have more time with their families. And this is the same case in our locations of Japan, Korea, Singapore, Shanghai, Thailand. We really want to mobilize the women in the workforce anywhere, at any time to do anything that they want. I do think maybe in the end, it's the way of the world that everybody wants, not just women alone. Why would not men also want to have the ability to work remotely and spend more time with family?
Yeah.
It's not just a women's desire. It's also everyone's desire to feel more free at work. And so, for us, I do think it's important for children to see that their parents are able to manage their work-life balance and also do things that are intellectually and emotionally fulfilling wherever they are. And so setting up a role model in the family is what our team structure and our corporate culture seeks to do. And we hope we're kind of the seedlings of that, and hope other companies can see what we do and also consider that as well. And it's a great format for startups. It's more flexible in terms of timing and commitments, and costs as well, actually. So, I do think there's many business cases that argue for this model. And it all makes sense together.
Yeah. The flexibility is really something that's becoming very important to people. And also myself as an entrepreneur, it's definitely something, freedom and flexibility. But there was one thing you told me last time that I kept in my mind, was that you found similarities between entrepreneurship and branding.
Right, yes.
Because you told me that in both cases, you build your universe, the universe you want to live in. So can you explain that? And second question, what universe do you want to live in as an entrepreneur?
Right. So I do think there's two parallels. So for brand building and entrepreneurship, it's really about world building, as you mentioned. And for entrepreneurship, it's about building the universe that you want, whether it's, for Uber, where you can like mobilize every car and activate it. So, ride sharing, people can earn an income, but also get a ride whenever they need. And also maybe save the environment as well, because there's less gas being used. Or even like Airbnb, where, every room can be a hotel room and you can experience the local culture. These are all things that very, very much ingrained within the entrepreneurship mindsets about how to make the world a better place. But also designers are trying to make the world a better place, maybe with either functionality or aesthetic, right? A lot of, for example, even funny things like in the office, like Vitra is trying to make chairs that are more suitable for you and your body and, for better posture and better comfort. That's also in their role, the optimal world. Or even, chinoiserie, some of the brands, they're really trying to build a world of fantasy and escapism, butterflies, birds, pagodas. These are all worlds that from your own eyes is what you want to craft. And life is about curation. You create your life. You want to create who's in it, what you're doing, what you see, what you experience. And so for myself, I guess it's the same. My vision of the world really is a world where cultures are intermingling. There's, broader cultural dialogue. And there is talk that scares me a little bit about the shrinking of globalization. But I don't think it's a bad thing to have globalization. Of course, it could be managed better. We don't want, the same stores on every street around the world and everywhere in the world, like looking the same and feeling the same and doing the same things, obviously. But we should embrace diversity, more about the kind of micro environments or different cultures, different foods, different fragrances, different experiences. Globalization to me is really about embracing the differences as opposed to making everything similar. So I guess that's a small part in the world that we hope to work on. Our platform Vermillion obviously is only playing a very small, humble part in this, but it's part of a bigger vision where we do feel the underrepresented has more of a voice, more of an impact, more representation. And, what we offer to the world is seen on equal footing to others, where not one is more dominant or has more weight than somebody else's voice. So it really is about, hoping for equality and democracy in different perspectives from around the world. And that's what Vermillion espouses.
Can you tell us how you call the people working at Vermillion?
Yeah, that's a pretty funny little insider tip. So we actually call our fans and our followers Vermillionaires because we hope that, with our perspective, they feel enriched more in their life and their, sense of well-being, obviously. But also for our younger ones, we call them Verminions because they are very cute and sweet, and and they have adorable outlook on life, and a lot of wordplay on the name Vermillion.
Love it. And what's your next big achievement at Vermillion, and how are you going to reach it?
I think for us, it's really about getting more in front of the right kinds of eyeballs and clients. I do think a lot of it's going to be a little bit offline. So we're really focusing on doing pop-ups, say, GOD is probably upcoming, the timing's TBD, so stay tuned, everyone. But also we're looking at other spaces around town as well. We also feature quite a few different categories. It's not just home goods, but it's also consumer goods generally, because we believe that with hardware, there also comes software. So even teas and coffees and snacks and bites, these are all things that are part of a 360-degree lifestyle experience. We even have, wines and gins and whiskeys and, fun things like that to go with our glassware and tableware. So, we really hope to be popping up in more locations and more hospitality outlets going forward. So please stay tuned.
Okay, let's move on now to the last question already. Time flies. So do you have any tips or lessons that you learned and you'd like to share with fellow entrepreneurs or future entrepreneurs?
I would say, things never quite work out the way that you want them to. But really, it's about adaptability and making sure that you try and pivot and find your optimal sweet spot. I think it's really about listening very, very carefully to the consumer, active listening to what they really want, and also partner and stakeholder management as well, making sure both sides of the chain are well taken care of, whether it's the client side or the brand side. A lot of it's really about being thoughtful, anticipating their needs, being thoughtful to what they're looking for, and even suggesting new ways of thinking, because a lot of the time, clients don't necessarily know what they want yet. They think they know, but when you give them a newer option, they're like, wow, I didn't think about this at all. And so, exceeding expectations and listening carefully in order to exceed the expectations would be one of your biggest tasks. But if you do well at that, you're going to fly.
Thank you. Well, thank you so much, Krizia, for sharing your experience. Your point of view was a very interesting and inspiring conversation also about diversity and ethics, and really liked it. I hope you liked it as well. So if we want to know more about Vermillion or about you, where should we go?
Please go to our website, www.vermillionlifestyle.com. We also have Instagram and Facebook. And I also think that a Google search will always be great. We do have a lot of news articles and press and media about us. We were also Design Anthology Magazine Industry Ambassador of the Year for Asia Pacific in 2023. So, I do think that that's somewhere that you could look also. Rob Report, Best of the Best list last year as well. But our website will keep evolving. We're always bringing on new products, new brands, so always stay tuned, always check back. There will always be something fun and exciting for you.
Cool. I'll add all the links in the description of the episode. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Carmen.
Thank you.
Enjoy, everyone.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
I hope you're inspired by today's business story. And if you're thinking about running your own business, you might now be one step closer to doing so. If you own a business and you're looking to get more visibility and reach new customers, try the social media pack from Octogen, a monthly retainer to grow your business through social media marketing and optimization. Check out octogenhk.com, the agency that helps business owners find their place on social media. See you in 2 weeks to meet a new Hong Kong business owner, and don't forget to leave me 5 stars to support me and follow me on Instagram at hk.businessowners. Bye!